The smoke rose from the burning cities of Kelthar Prime, like dark fingers reaching toward an uncaring sky. Elder Mirith stood among the ruins of what had once been the great temple, her 4 arms hanging limp at her sides. She was tired. So very tired. For 3 generations her people had prayed. They had called out to the stars, begging for help from the advanced races who watched the galaxy. The Keltharan people were peaceful. They had never wanted war. They studied art and music and the movements of distant stars. They grew food and raised their children and lived simple, happy lives. Then the Vazreks came. The Empire arrived in ships that blotted out the sun. Their soldiers were tall and covered in dark green scales. Their eyes were yellow and cold. They demanded surrender, and when the Keltharan government tried to negotiate, the Vazreks burned 3 cities to ash. That was 40 years ago. Mireth had been young then, barely into adulthood. Now her skin was pale and wrinkled. Her back was bent, but still she came to the temple ruins each morning to pray. "Please," she whispered to the empty sky. "Someone hear us. Anyone." The Council of Enlightened Races knew about Kelthar Prime. Their censorships had detected the invasion, but they did nothing. They believed in non-interference. They said that all species must find their own path, even if that path led through fire and blood. The Technological Brotherhood had the weapons to stop the Vazreks. Their ships could have ended the occupation in days, but they valued knowledge over life. They watched and recorded and did nothing. The Harmonious Collective meditated on the suffering of Kelthar Prime. They sent thoughts and prayers across the void, but they sent no ships, no soldiers, no help. Mirith heard footsteps behind her. She turned to see Joran approaching. He was young, barely 20 cycles old. His fur was still dark, not yet touched by gray. He carried a salvaged plasma rifle, one of the few weapons the Resistance had managed to steal from the Vazreks. "Elder," Joran said, his voice gentle, "you should not be here. The patrols come through this sector every morning." "Let them come," Mirith replied. "I am too old to hide anymore." Joran sat beside her on a broken pillar. "Did they answer?" "No one ever answers, child." "Then why do you keep praying?" Mirith looked at the young fighter. "Because hope is all we have left. And the moment we stop hoping, we might as well be dead." Joran was silent for a moment. Then he reached into his pack and pulled out a data tablet. "The others sent me to find you. We intercepted a Vazrek's transmission last night. General Krathix is expecting an inspection fleet from the Imperial Core worlds. They will arrive in 3 days. What does this matter to us? It matters because the fleet will use the main communications relay to send their reports back to the Empire. For 6 hours, that relay will be operating at full power, broadcasting across half the galaxy." Joran's eyes gleamed with something Mirith had not seen in a long time. Purpose. "We can hijack the signal. We can send one more message." Mirith felt her hearts beat faster. "The Vazreks will kill everyone involved. You know this." "Yes," Joran said simply, "but we are dying anyway. At least this way, we die trying." "Where would you send this message?" Joran tapped the tablet and a star chart appeared. He pointed to a small yellow star in a remote sector of the galaxy. "Here. The old charts call it Sol. There is a species there. They only recently achieved faster-than-light travel. They are new to the galaxy. If they are new, they will be weak. What help could they offer?" "Maybe none," Joran admitted. "But the old races will not help us. Perhaps a young race will be different. Perhaps they still remember what it means to fight for someone other than yourself." Mirith closed her eyes. She thought of her children, dead in the first purges. She thought of her grandchildren, slaves in the northern labor camps. She thought of 3 generations of prayers that had fallen on deaf ears. "When do we begin?" she asked. Joran smiled. "Tonight." The Resistance had 17 members left. Once, they had numbered in the thousands, but the Vazreks were efficient killers. They had hunted the rebels through the cities and the forests. They had offered rewards for information. They had made examples of captured fighters, executing them in public squares. But 17 was enough. The communications relay stood on the outskirts of the capital city, surrounded by walls and guard towers. Joran studied it through stolen surveillance equipment. 20 guards at any given time. Automated defenses, multiple backup power systems. "We cannot take it by force," said Lena, one of the oldest fighters. Her left arm had been badly burned in a raid years ago and never healed properly. "We do not have the weapons." "Then we do not take it by force," Joran replied. "We take it by stealth." He outlined his plan. 3 teams, 1 to disable the backup generators, 1 to breach the main facility, 1 to upload the message and hold the relay long enough for the transmission to complete. They all knew it was a suicide mission. No one would survive to see whether anyone answered their call. But they agreed anyway, because what else was there? Die fighting or die on your knees? The choice was simple. They moved in the dark hours before dawn, when the guards were tired and inattentive. Lena led her team through the underground maintenance tunnels. Joran and 5 others climbed the western wall using grappling hooks made from scavenged materials. The guards died quietly. The resistance fighters were not skilled soldiers, but desperation made them efficient. They had learned to kill in the years of occupation. They had learned because the alternative was extinction. Joran reached the main control room and plugged in the data tablet. His fingers flew across the screen, bypassing security protocols that Mireth had spent weeks learning to crack. The old elder had been a computer specialist before the invasion. Her knowledge had kept the resistance alive when everything else had failed. "Upload in progress," whispered Kara, watching the progress bar crawl across the screen. 2 minutes. Alarms began to blare. Plasma bolts burned through the door. The Vazreks had discovered them faster than anticipated. Joran fired his rifle through the doorway, not aiming, just buying time. 1 minute, Kara said, her voice tight. More guards poured into the corridor. Lena's team arrived from behind, firing, trying to create a crossfire. Bodies fell. Keltherin and Vazreks both. The air filled with smoke and the smell of burning flesh. 30 seconds. Joran felt something hot punch through his shoulder. He stumbled but kept firing. Beside him, Kara took a blast to the chest and fell without a sound. He wanted to check on her, but there was no time. There was only the mission. 10 seconds. The Vazreks threw grenades. The explosions shook the room. Joran's ears rang. He could taste blood. Upload complete. Transmission beginning. Joran looked at the screen. Their message was simple. A recording of Mireth, showing the burned cities and the slave camps. Showing the bodies of children and the empty eyes of the dying. Showing a people who had been peaceful and asking one simple question. Is there anyone out there who still remembers how to fight for someone other than themselves? The coordinates of Kelthar Prime followed, an invitation, a plea, a desperate hope cast into the void. Joran never saw if anyone received it. A plasma bolt caught him in the chest. He fell, and the world went dark. But the transmission completed. It raced across the galaxy at faster-than-light speeds, bouncing from relay to relay, spreading outward in an expanding sphere of electromagnetic radiation, and in a small solar system on the 3rd planet from a yellow sun, a monitoring station picked up the signal. Earth was listening. Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UNS Valkyrie and stared at the blue and green planet below. Kelthar Prime. It looked peaceful from orbit, beautiful even. But he knew what the sensors had already told him. The scars of occupation ran deep across its surface. "Status report," Jake said, his voice calm and level. Lieutenant Maria Santos worked at the tactical station, her fingers dancing across the controls. Detecting approximately 300 Vazrex military vessels in orbit and in the outer system. Multiple ground installations. They have orbital defense platforms around the major cities. Weapons? Plasma-based technology. Energy shields on their larger ships. Nothing we have not seen before. Maria looked up from her screen. Sir, we are outnumbered 3-1. Jake smiled, but there was no humor in it. Good. Then it is a fair fight. The crew chuckled. They were nervous. Jake could see it in the way Ensign Peter Grant kept checking and rechecking his communications board, in the way Lieutenant Kevin Barnes gripped the helm controls a little too tightly. They were good people, well-trained, but most of them had never seen real combat before. 3 months ago, none of them had known this world existed. Then the message came through. An old alien woman showing the horrors being done to her people, asking for help, begging, really. The United Nations Space Force had debated for 2 weeks about whether to respond. Earth had only been traveling between the stars for 15 years. They were new to the galactic community. They did not want to start a war with an established empire. But then someone in the General Assembly had stood up and played the message again. He had asked a simple question. What kind of people are we if we turn away from this? The vote had been unanimous. Earth would answer the call. The Valkyrie was not alone. 2 more heavy cruisers traveled with her, the Thunderchild and the Warhammer. Between them, they carried 1,200 crew members and 500 Marines. Not much of a fleet by galactic standards, but Earth did not have much of a fleet yet. They had sent what they could. Incoming transmission, Peter announced. It is from the planet's surface, the Vazrex Military Command. Put it on screen. The view screen flickered and a face appeared. It was reptilian, covered in dark green scales. Yellow eyes stared out at Jake with cold arrogance. This was General Krathix, the leader of the occupation force. Unknown vessel, Krathix hissed. You are interfering with Vazrex Imperial territory. Identify yourself immediately. General Krathix, Jake replied. I am Commander Jake Morrison of the United Nations Space Force. We received a distress call from the people of this world. You have occupied their planet illegally and committed atrocities against the civilian population. Krathix's eyes narrowed. The Keltharan are subjects of the Empire. This is an internal matter. You have no authority here. We have all the authority we need, Jake said. You have 24 hours to evacuate your forces and release all prisoners. If you do not comply, we will remove you by force. For a moment, there was silence. Then Krathix began to laugh. It was a harsh, ugly sound. You are a new species, barely able to navigate between stars. You dare threaten the Vazrex Empire? We have conquered 100 worlds. We have crushed species far older and more advanced than yours. Then we will be your first defeat, Jake said quietly. You have 3 ships, Krathix replied. I have 300. Even if your technology is equal to ours, which I doubt you cannot win. Leave now, and I will allow you to survive. Stay, and I will add your species to the list of extinct primitives who challenge the Empire. Jake leaned forward in his chair. General, let me tell you something about humans. We are not the smartest species in the galaxy. We are not the strongest. We do not have the best technology. But we have one thing that you seem to have forgotten. We remember how to fight, not for conquest, not for resources, but for people who cannot fight for themselves. Noble sentiments, Krathix said mockingly. They will look lovely carved on your tombstone. We did not come here to talk, Jake said. We came here because someone prayed for warriors, and Earth sent us. 24 hours, General. Use them wisely. He cut the transmission. Maria looked up from her station. Sir, do you really think he will surrender? No, Jake admitted, but I had to give him the chance. That is what separates us from him. What are your orders? Jake stood and walked to the view screen, looking down at the planet below. Somewhere down there, people were suffering. People who had begged the galaxy for help and been ignored. Until now. Send a message to the Thunderchild and the Warhammer. Tell them to prepare for combat operations. Then get me Captain Chang and Captain Turner. We need to plan our attack. Yes, sir. The three ship captains met in virtual conference, their images projected into the Valkyrie's ready room. Captain Lisa Chang of the Thunderchild was young for her rank, only 35, but she had proven herself in the border conflicts with the Centauri pirates. Captain Alex Turner of the Warhammer was older, grizzled, a veteran who had served in the last Earth wars before humanity reached the stars. "They will attack us before the deadline expires," Lisa said immediately. "The Vazrex are not known for patience." "Agreed," Alex rumbled. "They see us as weak, 3 ships against their fleet. They will try to crush us quickly to make an example." Jake nodded. "That is what I am counting on. We need to use their arrogance against them. They think we are primitives. Let them keep thinking that until it is too late." He brought up a tactical display of the Kelthar system. "The Vazrex fleet is spread out. They have not fought a real battle in decades. They are used to intimidating weaker species. Their formation is designed for show, not for combat efficiency." "What is the plan?" Lisa asked. "We split up. The Thunderchild goes high, the Warhammer goes low. The Valkyrie stays in the middle. When they attack, they will focus their fire on what they think is our command ship. While they are distracted, you two hit them from the flanks. Target their command vessels first. Cut off their coordination." "It is risky," Alex said. "If they concentrate their fire, the Valkyrie will not last long." "Then we better make sure they do not have the chance to concentrate their fire," Jake replied. "The moment we engage, I want our marine dropships heading for the surface. We need boots on the ground to support any local resistance and to secure the civilian population." "Who is leading the ground assault?" Lisa asked. "Lieutenant Kyle Rogers. He volunteered and his team has the most experience with hostile insertions." Alex grunted. "Good man. I served with his father during the Mars Rebellion. The boy has steel in his spine." "When do we expect their attack?" Lisa asked. Jake checked the time. "Intelligence suggests they will come at us within 6 hours. Krathix wants to crush us quickly and get back to his routine. He does not see us as a real threat." "Then let us show him how wrong he is," Lisa said with a fierce smile. The conference ended, and Jake returned to the bridge. The crew was at battle stations now, the mood tense but focused. They had trained for this. Humanity had been fighting wars since before they learned to write. The technology had changed, but the fundamentals remained the same. Peter looked up from his station. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission. It is not from the Vazrex. It is from the planet's surface. Audio only." "Play it." A voice filled the bridge. It was old and tired, but filled with desperate hope. "Unknown ships, this is Elder Mirith of the Keltharan people. We received your transmission. We heard what you said to the Vazrex commander. For 3 generations, we have prayed for help. The advanced races ignored us. They said violence was primitive. They said non-interference was the enlightened path. But you came. You are willing to fight for us, even though you do not know us. Why?" "Why would you do this?" Jake picked up the communications microphone. "Elder Mireth, my name is Commander Jake Morrison. We came because where we are from, when good people call for help, someone answers. That is what we do. That is what warriors are for. Hold on a little longer. Help is here." There was a long pause. Then Mireth spoke again, her voice breaking with emotion. "Thank you. Thank you for answering our prayers." The transmission ended. Maria looked over at Jake. "Sir, long-range sensors are detecting movement in the Vazrex fleet. Multiple ships breaking orbit and heading our way." "How many?" 80 vessels, cruisers and destroyers. They are moving into attack formation." Jake sat down in the command chair and buckled himself in. "Sound general quarters. All hands to battle stations." Launch alert fighters. Charge all weapon systems. Get me a firing solution on their lead ships." The bridge erupted into controlled chaos as the crew executed their orders. Red lights bathed everything in a bloody glow. The hum of the ship's engines grew louder as they powered up to combat levels. "Enemy vessels entering weapons range in 3 minutes," Maria reported. Jake opened a ship-wide channel. "All hands, this is the commander. In a few minutes, we are going to fight. The enemy thinks we are weak. They think 3 ships cannot stand against 80. They are wrong. Today we show the galaxy what humans are made of. Today we show them that Earth keeps its promises. Today we fight not for ourselves, but for people who cannot fight back. Make every shot count. Make them remember this day. Make them fear the name Valkyrie." He closed the channel and looked at his crew. Young faces, scared faces, but determined, ready. 2 minutes to contact," Maria said. "All ships execute attack pattern Delta, on my mark." The seconds ticked down. The Vazrex fleet grew larger on the screen, a swarm of hostile vessels racing toward them with plasma cannons charging. 1 minute. Jake's hand hovered over the weapons release. 30 seconds. Mark. The battle began. The Vazrex fleet opened fire first. 80 ships unleashed their plasma cannons in a coordinated volley. The space between the fleets lit up with green energy bolts, each one hot enough to melt through steel. "Evasive maneuvers," Jake ordered, his voice cutting through the chaos of the bridge. "Full power to forward shields." The Valkyrie rolled hard to port, her massive frame moving with surprising grace. Plasma bolts streaked past, so close that their energy washed over the shields in waves of rippling light. 2 shots connected, and the ship shuddered from the impact. "Shields holding at 85%, Maria called out. "Return fire authorized. All weapons free. Target their command ships. Fire." The Valkyrie's railguns spoke with thunder. Unlike the elegant energy weapons favored by most galactic species, human weapons were brutally simple. Solid projectiles accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. When they hit hard. The first volley caught a Vazrex heavy cruiser amidships. The kinetic rounds punched through its shields like they were not even there, tearing into the hull and ripping out the other side. The ship broke in half, atmosphere and debris spilling into the void. "Direct hit!" Peter shouted. "Enemy cruiser destroyed!" The Vazrex fleet hesitated. For just a moment, their perfect formation wavered. They had expected the humans to die quickly. They had not expected to lose ships in the opening exchange. That moment of hesitation cost them. The Thunderchild dropped out of high orbit like a falling hammer. Captain Lisa Chang had positioned her ship perfectly, using the planet's gravity well to build up velocity. She came down on the Vazrex fleet's flank, with all guns blazing. "This is Thunderchild!" Lisa's voice crackled over the tactical channel. "Engaging enemy formation! All batteries firing!" Her ship tore into the Vazrex line like a shark through fish. Railgun rounds and missiles streaked out in all directions. 3 Vazrex destroyers exploded in rapid succession. A 4th lost power and began tumbling through space, trailing debris. The Vazrex fleet broke formation, trying to respond to threats from multiple directions. That was when the Warhammer hit them from below. Captain Alex Turner was a methodical fighter. He did not waste shots. Every weapon fired with precision, every target carefully chosen. His crew worked like a machine, loading and firing and loading again. 5 more Vazrex ships died in the first minute of his attack. "Enemy forces in disarray," Maria reported, a note of excitement in her voice. "Their command network is breaking down. They are trying to regroup." "Do not give them the chance," Jake said. "All ships, press the attack. Focus fire on their heavy units. Take out anything that looks like a command vessel." The 3 human ships moved through the Vazrex fleet, like wolves among sheep. They were outnumbered. But numbers meant nothing when you could not coordinate. The Vazrex had not fought a real battle in so long that they had forgotten how. They fired wildly, sometimes hitting their own ships. They bunched together, making themselves easier targets. Humanity had never forgotten how to fight. Earth had been at war with itself for thousands of years. The lessons learned in blood and fire were coded into their tactics, their training, their very DNA. "Sir, detecting movement in the enemy reserves," Peter called out. 20 more ships breaking orbit from the far side of the planet. Composition: 10 cruisers, 10 destroyers. They are moving to flank us. Jake studied the tactical display. The main Vazrex force was falling apart, but fresh ships could change that. If they hit the human fleet from behind while they were engaged with the first group, it could get ugly. "Maria, can we break off and engage the reserves before they reach us?" "Negative, sir. We are too deep in the furball. If we disengage now, the ships we are fighting will regroup." Jake made his decision. "Signal the Warhammer. Have them break off and intercept the reserves. The Valkyrie and Thunderchild will hold here." "Sir, that leaves Captain Turner alone against 20 ships." "I know, but Alex can handle it. That man has forgotten more about ship combat than most captains ever learn." The Warhammer peeled away from the main battle, its engines burning at full power as it raced to intercept the reinforcements. Jake watched it go on his screen and hoped he had made the right call. "Incoming plasma fire," Maria shouted. "Brace for impact." The Valkyrie shook hard. Alarms blared. Lights flickered. Somewhere below, Jake heard the sound of bulkheads buckling. "Shields down to 40%. Hull breach on Deck 7, Section 12. Damage control teams responding." "Keep us in the fight, Maria. Helm, bring us about. Target that battlecruiser at heading 275. "Sir, that is General Krathix's command ship," Peter said. "Good. Let us give him our regards." The Valkyrie turned, her damaged shields flickering. The Vazrex battlecruiser was larger than the human ship, covered in armor and weapons. It should have been an uneven fight. But Jake knew something Krathix did not. Human ships were built with one purpose: survival. Every system had backups. Every weapon had redundancies. They could take damage that would destroy more elegant vessels and keep fighting. "Full spread of missiles. All railguns, continuous fire. I want that ship crippled." The Valkyrie unleashed everything she had. Missiles spiraled out in complex patterns, confusing point defense systems. Railgun rounds hammered at the battlecruiser's shields, each impact weakening them further. The Vazrex ship returned fire, plasma cannons blazing, but the Valkyrie rolled and weaved, presenting different shield faces, spreading the damage. One of the missiles got through. It struck the battlecruiser's port engine cluster and detonated. The explosion was massive, tearing off a quarter of the ship's rear section. The battlecruiser began to list, spilling atmosphere and debris. "Enemy command ship is dead in space," Maria reported. "Detecting multiple internal explosions. She is breaking up." Jake felt no satisfaction, only grim determination. "Good! Next target. Keep moving. Keep firing." On the planet below, Lieutenant Kyle Rogers watched the light show in the sky. The drop pods had landed 15 minutes ago in the ruins of the capital city. His Marines had secured a perimeter and were now linking up with the Kelthiran resistance. The locals were in bad shape, malnourished, poorly armed. But their eyes held something Kyle recognized: the same desperate courage he had seen in refugees on a dozen different worlds. They were survivors. A Kelthiran fighter approached him. She was young, her fur matted with dirt and blood. "You are the humans, the ones who answered the call?" "Yes, ma'am." "Lieutenant Kyle Rogers, United Nations Marine Corps. Can you take us to your command center?" "There is no command center. There is only us. 17 of us left." Kyle felt something twist in his gut. 17, out of a whole world. "Then we work with what we have. What is the tactical situation?" "The Vazrex control everything. They have garrisons in every major city, labor camps in the northern territories. Their main base is in the old capital, 5 kilometers from here. How many soldiers? Thousands, maybe more. They rotate troops in and out. Sergeant Nicole Brooks stepped forward. She was Kyle's second in command, a veteran of the Titan campaign. Sir, we have 200 Marines. If the locals can guide us, we can start hitting supply lines and communication posts, disrupt their operations. Kyle nodded. That is what we do. Quick strikes. Hit and fade. Make them scared to leave their bases. He turned back to the Keltharan fighter. What is your name? Lena. Lena, can you gather your people? We need to coordinate our efforts. Yes. Follow me. They moved through the ruined streets. Kyle could see the evidence of the occupation everywhere. Burned buildings, empty homes, the occasional body, too long dead to bury. His Marines stayed alert, weapons ready, but the streets were empty. The Vazrex had imposed a curfew. Anyone outside after dark was shot on sight. The Resistance hideout was in the basement of a collapsed school. The other fighters waited there, a ragged group armed with stolen weapons and desperate hope. When they saw the humans in their armored suits and modern weapons, several of them began to cry. An old Keltharan stepped forward. She had 4 arms and pale, wrinkled skin. I am Mireth. I sent the message. I prayed to the stars, and you came. Kyle removed his helmet. Elder Mireth, we got your message, and we are here to help. But I need to be honest with you. We cannot free your world alone. We need your help. We need fighters who know the terrain, who can move without being seen. Can your people do that? Mireth looked at her ragged band of survivors. Then she looked back at Kyle. We have been doing that for 40 years, Lieutenant. We know how to fight. We just never had weapons or support. Now we have both. Then let us get to work. For the next 6 hours, they planned. The Resistance knew every Vazrex patrol route, every weak point in their defenses. The Marines had the weapons and training to exploit those weaknesses. Together, they began to forge a strategy. Nicole approached Kyle during a break in the planning. Sir, we are getting reports from orbit. The fleet is holding, but it is getting rough up there. The Valkyrie has taken heavy damage. Kyle looked up at the ceiling, as if he could see through it to the battle raging in space. Then we need to give them a reason to keep fighting. We need to show them that their sacrifice matters. What do you have in mind? The Vazrex main base. If we can take it, we cut off their command and control. The garrisons in the other cities will be isolated. Easier to defeat. Sir, there are thousands of enemy soldiers at that base. We have 200 Marines and 17 locals. I know the numbers, Sergeant, but we have surprise. And we have something they do not. What is that, sir? Kyle smiled grimly. We have humans, and humans do not quit. He turned to address the group. Listen up. We are going to hit the Vazrex main base. I know it sounds crazy. I know the odds. But here is what you need to understand. Up in orbit, our people are fighting and dying to give you a chance. Down here, we need to prove that their sacrifice means something. We need to show the Vazrex that occupation is not free, that every day they stay on this world will cost them blood. He looked each person in the eyes, Marine and Keltharan alike. I will not lie to you. Some of us will not survive this. But those who do will be able to say they were there when Kelthar Prime fought back. They were there when humanity showed the galaxy what we are made of. So who is with me? Every hand went up. Every single one. Good, Kyle said. Then let us go to war. They moved out under the cover of darkness, a small force of humans and aliens united by a common cause. Above them, the battle for orbit continued. Plasma and kinetic rounds lit up the night sky like fireworks. In space, Jake watched another Vazrex ship explode. They were winning, slowly, painfully, but winning. Status on the Warhammer? He asked. Captain Turner has engaged the enemy reserves. He reports 15 enemy ships destroyed. 5 remaining are attempting to retreat. And our status? Shields at 20%. Multiple hull breaches. We have lost railgun batteries 3 and 5. Missile tubes are down to 60% capacity. But we are still in the fight. Jake nodded. They were hurt, but not beaten. Never beaten. Sir, Peter said suddenly. Getting a transmission from the surface. It is Lieutenant Rogers. Put him through. Kyle's voice crackled over the speakers. Valkyrie, this is ground team actual. We are about to assault the enemy main base. Could use a little fire support if you have any to spare. Jake looked at his weapons display. They were running low on everything, but Kyle was down there fighting. He deserved support. Ground team actual, this is Valkyrie. Give me your target coordinates. We will give you whatever we have left. Thank you, sir. Coordinates incoming. And Commander, tell the fleet to keep fighting. We are going to win this thing. The transmission ended. Maria looked over at Jake. Sir, if we divert power to the orbital bombardment systems, it will leave us vulnerable. Do it anyway, Jake ordered. Our people are down there. We do not leave them hanging. The Valkyrie shifted in space, her battered hull turning to face the planet below. Her remaining weapons locked onto the coordinates Kyle had provided. Firing solutions locked, Maria reported. Fire! And the thunder of war reached down from the heavens. The orbital strike hit the Vazrek's base like the fist of an angry god. Kinetic rounds fell from the sky at impossible speeds, each one carrying the energy of a small bomb. The outer walls of the base simply ceased to exist. Guard towers vanished in clouds of dust and debris. The landing pads where Vazrek's shuttles sat waiting turned into craters. Kyle and his team watched from a kilometer away as the bombardment tore through the enemy defenses. The ground shook beneath their feet. The sound was like continuous thunder, rolling across the landscape without pause. Now, Kyle shouted into his radio, all teams, advance, fast and hard. Do not give them time to recover. The Marines moved forward in practiced formation, their powered armor allowing them to cross the broken ground quickly. The Keltheran fighters followed, using the rubble for cover. They had split into 3 groups. Kyle led the main assault on the Central Command building. Nicole took a team to secure the vehicle depot. A Keltheran fighter named Drin led the 3rd group to the prison compound where civilians were held. The Vazreks were in chaos. The orbital strike had destroyed their communications array and killed most of their command staff. The surviving soldiers stumbled through the smoke and dust, trying to figure out what was happening. Many of them had never experienced a real attack before. The Keltheran resistance had always been too weak to threaten a major base. But this was different. This was professional soldiers backed by orbital support. Kyle's rifle barked 3 times. 3 Vazrek soldiers fell. Beside him, Corporal Danny Morris lobbed a grenade into a bunker. The explosion sent bodies flying. The Marines advanced like a machine, each person covering the others, moving from position to position without wasted motion. A group of Vazreks tried to organize a counterattack from a fortified building. They laid down plasma fire, forcing the Marines to take cover. Kyle evaluated the situation quickly. Greg, Sophie, flank them from the left. Wait for my signal. Private Greg Collins and Private Sophie Martinez broke away from the main group, moving low and fast through the ruins. They reached a position behind the Vazrek strongpoint and waited. Morris, put smoke on that building. Everyone else, suppressing fire on my mark. Danny pulled a smoke grenade from his belt and threw it. White smoke billowed up, obscuring the Vazrek's position. Kyle counted to 3. Mark. Every Marine opened fire at once. Hundreds of rounds poured into the building, not aiming for specific targets, just creating noise and chaos. Under the cover of that fire, Greg and Sophie moved in from behind. The Vazreks never saw them coming. 15 seconds later, the building was secure. Keep moving, Kyle ordered. We need that command center. Across the base, Nicole's team hit the vehicle depot. The Vazreks kept their ground transports and light armor there. If they could destroy those vehicles, the enemy would have no way to bring in reinforcements from the other garrisons. Nicole placed charges on every transport she could reach. Her demolition specialist, Sergeant Frank Hayes, worked with quick efficiency, setting timers and connecting detonators. They had 5 minutes before the charges blew. A Vazrex patrol spotted them. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air. One of Nicole's Marines went down, his armor burned through at the shoulder. She dragged him to cover and returned fire, her rifle spitting rounds in controlled bursts. "Frank, how much longer?" 30 seconds. Almost done." "We do not have 30 seconds. Set them and let us go." Frank pressed the final detonator and ran. The team sprinted for the exit as more Vazrex appeared. Plasma fire chased them across the depot. Another Marine took a hit to the leg and stumbled. Nicole grabbed him and half-carried, half-dragged him through the gate. They made it 50 meters before the charges detonated. The explosion was massive. Every vehicle in the depot went up at once. The blast wave knocked them all flat. Nicole's ears rang. She could taste copper in her mouth. But they were alive. "Everyone up!" she shouted, though she could barely hear her own voice. "We need to regroup with the lieutenant." At the prison compound, Dren and his team moved through the cells like ghosts. The human Marines had given them advanced weapons and taught them tactics, but it was Dren's knowledge of the base layout that made the difference. He knew which guards would be where, which cells held which prisoners. They killed the guards silently, efficiently, no alarms, no alerts. By the time the Vazrex realized what was happening, 200 Keltaran prisoners were free and armed with stolen weapons. "This way," Dren called, leading the freed prisoners toward the eastern wall. "The humans are attacking from the west. We go east and circle around, trap the enemy between us." An old Keltaran woman grabbed his arm. "How many humans came to help us?" 200 Marines, plus 3 ships in orbit." "Only 200? Against all of this?" Dren smiled. "You have not seen humans fight yet, grandmother. 200 is enough." Kyle reached the command center just as the last Vazrex defenders fell back inside. The building was heavily fortified, designed to withstand orbital bombardment. Taking it would not be easy. "Danny, what do you have for breaching?" 2 shaped charges and a thermal lance. The charges will get us through the door. The lance might work on the interior walls. "Do it. Everyone else set up a perimeter. They might try to escape out the back." Danny worked quickly, placing the charges on the reinforced door. Kyle pulled his team back to a safe distance. The explosion would be significant. "Fire in the hole," Danny called, and pressed the detonator. The shaped charges did their job perfectly. The door blasted inward in a shower of metal fragments. Smoke poured from the opening. Kyle led his team inside. Weapons up, moving through the smoke like hunting cats. Plasma fire erupted from deeper in the building. Kyle dove behind a pillar as bolts burned past his head. He could see Vazrex soldiers barricaded behind furniture and equipment, firing desperately. "Grenades!" he ordered. "Clear the room!" 4 grenades arced through the air. The explosions were deafening in the enclosed space. When the smoke cleared, the Vazrex defense had collapsed. Kyle and his Marines moved forward, securing each room methodically. They found General Krathix in the central command room, surrounded by his remaining officers. The general's scales were scarred and his uniform was torn, but his eyes still burned with arrogance. "You are the human," Krathix hissed. "The one who leads this attack." "Lieutenant Kyle Rogers, United Nations Marine Corps." Kyle kept his rifle trained on the general. "You are under arrest for war crimes against the Keltharan people. You cannot arrest me. I am a general of the Vazrex Empire." "I just did. Put your weapons down. All of you." The Vazrex officers looked at each other. They were surrounded. Their base was destroyed. Their fleet was in chaos above the planet. Slowly, reluctantly, they placed their plasma pistols on the floor. Kyle activated his radio. "Command, this is Ground Team Actual. We have secured the enemy base. General Krathix is in custody. Repeat, Target is secured. In orbit, Jake heard the message and felt something loosen in his chest. Good work, Lieutenant. Outstanding work. He looked at his tactical display. The Vazrek's fleet was broken. Nearly 70 ships destroyed. The survivors were retreating to the outer system. The Warhammer was pursuing them, making sure they kept running. Maria, damage report. Sir, we are in bad shape. Life support is stable, but we have lost main power to 6 decks. The port engine is offline. Shields are gone completely. If they hit us again, we are done. But they are not going to hit us again, Jake said, because they are running. Signal the Thunderchild. Tell Captain Chang to break off pursuit. Let them go. We have done enough. Yes, sir. Jake opened a channel to the entire fleet. All ships. This is Commander Morrison. The battle is over. We have won. The Vazreks are retreating. Kelthar Prime is free. Cheers erupted on the bridge. Tired, relieved cheers. They had survived. Against impossible odds, they had survived and won. Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the planet, Peter said. It is Elder Mireth. Jake smiled. Put her through. Mireth's face appeared on the screen. She was crying, her 4 arms pressed to her chest. Commander Morrison, the Vazreks are surrendering. All across the planet, their soldiers are laying down their weapons. After 40 years, we are free. We are finally free. You earned your freedom, Elder, Jake replied gently. You and your people never stopped fighting. We just helped finish the job. What happens now? Now we make sure the Vazreks never come back. We help you rebuild. We train your people to defend themselves, and we let the galaxy know that Kelthar Prime is under Earth's protection. Why? Mireth asked, the same question she had asked before. Why would you do all this for us? Jake thought about how to answer. He thought about the crew members he had lost, the ships that were damaged, the long journey home that awaited them. He thought about Earth, so far away, and the people there who had voted to send help to a world they had never heard of. Because someone had to, he said finally. And if not us, then who? On the surface, Kyle supervised the surrender of the remaining Vazrek's forces. Thousands of soldiers emerged from bunkers and buildings, their weapons raised above their heads. They looked defeated, broken. They had come to Kelthar Prime expecting an easy occupation. Instead, they had learned a hard lesson. Never underestimate someone fighting for their home. Nicole approached him as the sun began to rise. Sir, final casualty count is in. We lost 12 Marines. 23 wounded. The Keltharan resistance lost 4 fighters. Kyle closed his eyes. 12 dead. 12 families back on Earth who would get the news that their loved ones were not coming home. It hurt. It would always hurt. But he knew they had died for something that mattered. Make sure their names are recorded properly, he said. I want to write letters to their families personally. Yes, sir. Lena, the young Keltharan fighter, found Kyle as he was organizing the prisoner transport. Lieutenant Rogers, I wanted to thank you for everything. You do not need to thank me. You and your people did most of the fighting. We just provided support. No, Lena said firmly. Before you came, we were dying slowly. We had no hope. You gave us hope. And you showed us that not everyone in the galaxy has forgotten what it means to help others. Kyle looked at the ruins around them, at the freed prisoners being reunited with their families, at the Vazrek soldiers being marched into detention, at the human Marines standing guard, exhausted but victorious. The galaxy is full of species more advanced than us, he said, smarter than us, more peaceful than us. But sometimes being advanced means you forget the basics. You forget that some things are worth fighting for. You forget that freedom is not free. Will you stay? Lena asked. Will Earth help us rebuild? For as long as you need us, that is a promise. In the days that followed, the extent of the victory became clear. The Vazrek's empire, shocked by their defeat, recalled their forces from 3 other occupied worlds. They did not want to face humanity again. The Council of Enlightened Races sent observers to Kelthar Prime, amazed that such a young species had accomplished what they deemed impossible. The Technological Brotherhood requested meetings with Earth's military leaders, wanting to understand human tactics and strategy. The Harmonious Collective sent a formal apology to the Keltharan people for their inaction. But the biggest change was simpler. Across the galaxy, oppressed people began to hope. If the Keltharan could be freed, maybe they could too. If Earth had answered one call for help, maybe they would answer another. Jake stood on the bridge of the Valkyrie, now in a stable orbit around Kelthar Prime. The ship was being repaired by Keltharan engineers working alongside human crew. It would take weeks before they could jump to hyperspace again, but there was no rush. The work here was not finished. "Commander," Maria said, "we are receiving multiple transmissions from different star systems. They are all distress calls, all asking for help." Jake looked at the list of incoming messages. 7 worlds, 7 different species, all suffering under occupation or oppression, all begging for someone to care. "What are your orders, sir?" Jake thought about Earth, so far away, about the fleet they had, small and still growing, about the crew, exhausted but proud of what they had accomplished. He thought about the Keltharan, free after 40 years of slavery. He thought about what it meant to be human. "Log the coordinates of each transmission," he said. "Forward them to command on Earth. Tell them we have work to do." "Sir?" "These people prayed for help, Maria, and Earth answers prayers. That is who we are. That is what we do." He looked out at the stars, at the vast galaxy full of suffering and hope. "We are warriors, and this is just the beginning." 6 months had passed since the liberation of Kelthar Prime. The planet was healing, slowly. The scars of 40 years of occupation did not disappear overnight, but everywhere Jake looked, he saw progress. The capital city was being rebuilt. Keltharan families had returned to their homes, or what was left of them. Human engineers worked alongside local builders, showing them techniques for rapid construction. Medical teams treated the sick and injured. Teachers reopened schools that had been closed for decades. Jake stood in what would become the new Keltharan Defense Force headquarters. The building was not finished yet, but it was functional. Inside, Lieutenant Kyle Rogers was training a new generation of Keltharan soldiers. "Keep your stance wide," Kyle called to a group of recruits. "The rifle should feel like an extension of your body. When you aim, breathe out slowly. Squeeze the trigger, do not pull it." The recruits followed his instructions. They were young, mostly, people who had grown up under occupation and wanted to make sure it never happened again. Lena was among them, now wearing the uniform of a Keltharan sergeant. She had proven herself during the liberation and earned her rank. Jake watched for a few minutes, then moved on. He had meetings to attend. The work of building a lasting peace was harder than winning the war had been. Elder Mireth waited for him in the conference room, along with several other Keltharan leaders. They had formed a provisional government, elected by the people to guide their world into its new future. Mireth had not wanted the responsibility, but the people had insisted. She was the one who had never given up hope. She was the one who had sent the message that saved them all. "Commander Morrison," Mireth said as Jake entered. "Thank you for coming." "Elder, counselors." Jake took a seat. "What can I do for you?" "We have been discussing Earth's presence on our world," one of the younger counselors said. His name was Torin. "Your people have been generous with aid and assistance. But we must ask, what does Earth want from us? What is the price of our freedom?" Jake had expected this question. "There is no price. We did not come here for resources or territory. We came because you asked for help." "But surely Earth expects something in return," Torin pressed. "That is how the galaxy works. Nothing is free." "Maybe that is how the old galaxy worked," Jake replied. "But Earth is new to the stars. We do things differently. When someone calls for help, we answer. That is all?" Mirith placed a hand on Torin's shoulder. "I believe him, Counselor. The humans have had many chances to exploit us. They have not taken any of them." "We would like to formalize our relationship," another counselor said. "Perhaps a mutual defense treaty? If the Vazrex return or if another empire threatens us, we want to know that Earth will stand with us again." Jake nodded. "I can forward that proposal to my government, but I think they will agree. We do not abandon our friends." "There is another matter," Mireth said. "The other species who have called for help. The 7 worlds you mentioned. What will Earth do about them?" Jake leaned back in his chair. "That is being debated on Earth right now. Our fleet is small. We cannot be everywhere at once. But we are building more ships, training more soldiers. And yes, we plan to answer those calls. Eventually." "The galaxy is watching," Mireth said softly. "They are watching to see what humanity will do next. You have challenged everything they believe about advanced civilizations. You have shown that sometimes violence is necessary, that sometimes you must fight for what is right. Some of them hate us for it," Jake admitted. "The Council of Enlightened Races has condemned our actions. They say we are dangerous, that we will destabilize the galaxy." "And what do you say to that?" "I say the galaxy was already unstable. It was just that the peaceful races did not want to see it. They meditated while worlds burned. They pursued knowledge while children died. They found enlightenment while people prayed for help that never came." Jake met Mireth's eyes. "If being dangerous means we help people that others ignore, then yes, we are dangerous, and we are not going to apologize for it." A smile crossed Mireth's face. "Good. The galaxy needs more dangerous people like you." Across the galaxy, in the Vazrex imperial capital, the Senate was in chaos. General Krathix stood in chains before the assembled lords, his scales dull with shame. The Empire had suffered its first major defeat in 200 years, and someone had to pay. "You had 300 ships," the High Lord hissed. "You faced 3. And you lost. Explain this failure." "The humans fight differently," Krathix said, his voice barely above a whisper. "They do not follow the standard patterns. They are aggressive, relentless. They do not know when to quit." "You say that as if it explains your incompetence." "My lord, I am trying to make you understand. These humans are not like other species. They have been at war with themselves for their entire history. Every tactic they use has been tested in blood. Every strategy has been refined through countless conflicts. They are born warriors." The High Lord was silent for a moment. "What do you recommend?" "Stay away from them," Krathix said firmly. "Do not challenge Earth. Do not threaten worlds they have claimed as allies. The humans may be new to the galaxy, but they are already too dangerous to fight." "Are you suggesting the mighty Vazrex Empire should fear these primitives?" "I am suggesting that we should learn from our mistakes. The humans came to Kelthar Prime because the Keltharan called for help. As long as we do not give other worlds reason to call for human aid, we can avoid them." The High Lord considered this. "Very well. Issue an order to all Imperial forces. Occupied worlds are to be treated with more care. We will reduce the brutality of our methods, not out of kindness, but out of strategy. We do not want to give Earth any more reasons to interfere." Krathix was led away to his punishment, but his words echoed through the Senate. The Vazrex Empire had learned a hard lesson. Humanity was a force to be respected. On Earth, in the United Nations headquarters in New York, the Secretary General addressed the General Assembly. Her name was President Catherine Wells, and she carried the weight of a decision that would shape humanity's future. "Members of the Assembly," she began, "we have received reports from Commander Morrison. Kelthar Prime is secure. The Vazrex have retreated. Our mission was a success." Applause filled the chamber, but Catherine raised her hand for silence. However, we now face a choice. 7 more worlds have called for our help. 7 species are suffering under occupation or oppression. They have heard what we did for the Keltharin. They hope we will do the same for them. She paused, letting the gravity of the situation sink in. Our fleet is small. We have only 12 ships capable of interstellar combat. We have lost good people in the battle for Kelthar Prime. If we answer these calls, we will lose more. Some argue that we should focus on Earth, on building our strength, on exploring the galaxy peacefully. And what do you believe, Madam President? Someone called from the assembly. Catherine looked out at the representatives of every nation on Earth. I believe that we did not come to the stars to hide. We did not build these ships to watch from the sidelines. When the Keltharin called for help, we answered. And I believe we must answer again. But at what cost? Another representative asked. How many lives are we willing to sacrifice for species we do not know? That is the question every generation must answer, Catherine replied. How much are we willing to give to help others? Our grandparents fought wars to end tyranny on Earth. They died by the millions to protect freedom. Are we less brave than they were? Are we less willing to stand for what is right? The chamber was silent. Everyone remembered the history, the world wars, the struggles for independence, the long fight for human rights. Earth had been baptized in fire. Its people knew the cost of freedom. I am not asking you to commit to all 7 worlds at once, Catherine continued. I am asking for authorization to build more ships, to train more soldiers, to prepare humanity for the role we seem to have been chosen for. We are the warriors. We are the ones who answer prayers. Let us do it right. The vote was not unanimous. Some nations argued for caution. Some worried about the cost. But in the end, the majority agreed. Earth would build its fleet. Earth would answer the calls. Back on Kelthar Prime, Jake received the news from Earth. He shared it with his crew on the repaired Valkyrie. Maria, Peter, Kevin, and all the others who had fought and bled for a world they had never heard of 6 months ago. We are going home, Jake announced. The Valkyrie is ready for the jump to hyperspace. We will reach Earth in 2 weeks. Cheers erupted on the bridge. They had done their duty. They had won their battle. Now they could go home to their families. But Kyle and his Marines were staying, at least for now. The Keltharin Defense Force needed trainers, teachers, people who could pass on the lessons that Earth had learned over millennia of warfare. I will miss you, sir, Kyle said as he and Jake met for a final time before the Valkyrie's departure. You are doing important work here, Lieutenant. These people need you. They needed you first. You were the one who made the decision to come here. To risk everything for strangers. Jake shook his head. I just followed orders. The real heroes are the people who voted to send us. The civilians back on Earth who decided that helping others was worth the cost. Will Earth answer the other calls? The other 7 worlds? Yes, eventually. We need to build more ships first. Train more crews. But yes, we will answer. Kyle smiled. Good. The galaxy needs to learn that some people still care, that some people will still fight for what is right. They shook hands, and Jake returned to his ship. The Valkyrie rose into orbit, her engines burning bright against the dark of space. The Keltharin people gathered in the streets below, watching as their saviors departed. Many of them cried, many of them cheered, all of them remembered. On the bridge, Jake took one last look at Kelthar Prime. The planet was green and blue and beautiful, free. He thought about the message Mirith had sent, the desperate plea that had reached across the stars to find Earth, the prayer that had been answered when no one else would respond. Helm, set course for Earth, he ordered. Course laid in, sir. Engage! The Valkyrie jumped to hyperspace, leaving Kelthar Prime behind. But the impact of what had happened would ripple across the galaxy for generations. On 100 worlds, oppressed people heard the story. They learned that a young species had answered a call for help. That warriors from Earth had crossed the stars to fight for strangers. Hope began to spread. Whispers turned to shouts. Maybe freedom was possible. Maybe someone would answer their prayers too. In the Council of Enlightened Races, the debate raged. Some argued that humanity was dangerous, that they would destabilize the carefully maintained peace. Others wondered if perhaps their peace had been a lie. Perhaps they had simply learned to ignore the suffering they could not see. The Technological Brotherhood studied human military tactics with fascination. How could such a young species be so effective at warfare? The answer was sobering. Because they had never stopped fighting. Because they had learned lessons in blood that older species had forgotten. The Harmonious Collective sent a delegation to Earth. They wanted to understand these warriors who fought for others. They wanted to know if humans could teach them to care again. And in the darkest corners of the galaxy, tyrants and empire builders paused. They looked at their occupied worlds and wondered. If the people there called for help, would Earth answer? Could they defend against human intervention? Many decided the risk was not worth it. Some began treating their subjects better. Others released prisoners. A few even withdrew from occupied territories entirely. The galaxy was changing, because one species had remembered something the others had forgotten. That peace is not just the absence of war. Peace is what happens when good people are willing to fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. On Earth, Jake Morrison returned to a hero's welcome. But he did not feel like a hero. He felt like someone who had done his job. Someone who had answered a call and kept a promise. At the memorial service for the fallen crew members, he spoke to the families. "Your loved ones died far from home," he said. "They died for people they did not know, for a world they had never seen. Some might ask if it was worth it, if their sacrifice meant anything." He paused, looking at the faces before him. Mothers and fathers. Wives and husbands, children who would grow up without a parent. "I can tell you that it did. Because of them, an entire world is free. Because of them, children on Kelthar Prime will grow up without fear. Because of them, the galaxy knows that humanity keeps its promises. That is worth something. That is worth everything." Later, alone in his quarters, Jake looked at the reports from the 7 worlds that had called for help. Each one was a story of suffering. Each one was a prayer waiting to be answered. Earth was building new ships, training new crews. In a year, maybe 2, they would be ready to answer those calls, to send more warriors to fight for those who could not fight for themselves. It would not be easy. More people would die. More families would grieve. But it was the right thing to do. Jake thought about a conversation he had with Mireth before he left. She had asked him what Earth wanted from all this, what humans hoped to gain. He had told her the truth. Humanity wanted to build a galaxy where people did not have to pray for help because they knew help would come. A galaxy where the strong protected the weak instead of exploiting them. A galaxy where being advanced meant more than just having better technology. It meant having the courage to use that technology for good. "We want to matter," he had said. "We want our existence to mean something. And if that means fighting battles that others will not, then that is what we will do." Mireth had smiled at that. "You have already succeeded, Commander. You matter more than you know." Now, sitting in his quarters on Earth, Jake allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. They had done it. They had answered the call. They had shown the galaxy that humanity was more than just another species climbing to the stars. They were warriors, protectors, the ones who answered prayers, and they were just getting started. Across the galaxy, on 7 different worlds, people looked up at the stars and hoped. They whispered prayers into the darkness. They asked for someone to hear them, someone to care, and on Earth, humanity heard. and humanity prepared to answer because no one else would, because someone had to, because that was who they were. The warriors from Earth, the ones who came when called, the ones who fought for those who could not fight for themselves, the ones who had learned that sometimes the only way to preserve peace was to be willing to go to war. No one had answered their prayers until Earth sent warriors, and the warriors would keep coming, again and again, for as long as there were people who needed them. That was the promise. That was the commitment. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy. Hope, protection, justice, and the knowledge that when you called for help, someone would answer. Always.